have that was intended to distract us. And I mean, I'm saying a propaganda because till date that news is not confirmed. Um, in fact, I don't think it will ever be confirmed. So that's why I'm saying propaganda. So yesterday, if you are conscious on the TL, you discover that there was an attempt to claim that, oh, there was a court ruling that Lamidi Papa is now the the chairman of Labour Party. If you followed, you'd have seen something like that came up. So it was a very funny funny story, but it never developed because nobody was buying it. I think the story came like, oh, the court have decided that the candidates of Labour Party in some states, blah de blah de blah, uh, the candidates of Labour Party in some states are the from Lamidi Papa's faction are the right candidates. So in Imo State, in Kogi State, Kini Kom. So it was a very funny story, but nobody was really interested. I mean, when I initially saw it, I won't lie, I panicked for a bit. I was like, like somebody sent it to me, and I was like, what is this? I was like, what will be this one? I mean, it was very funny, but the story didn't even go far because the first thing I did was to like go online to check if there was anything really. Then I discovered that people that were carrying it were some few APC boys, and they were just spreading it. I mean, they were trying to spread it. That's another thing to tell you that we have the narrative on the social media already. Because if you, I don't know. I mean, I want to believe a lot of us are used to Twitter. If you go to search now and search Lamidi Papa, right, to just see conversation that be about Lamidi Papa in the past, and go to latest, then scroll to the tweets around, let's say, 6 p.m., 7 p.m. yesterday, you'll see some people that were saying, some people were saying things like, oh, they thought they have dealt with Lamidi Papa, but it got them in the B. You get? So they thought they were posting that video of Lamidi Papa coming out from the car and bouncing. I know that. I was like, what's wrong with all this one? They're trying to spend, but the thing did not even sell. So I just laughed and I was like, okay, this was a cheap attempt to distract us from the from the written address that came out. But funny enough, I don't think anybody was interested in that story. So I think a lot of people just said, whatever you want to say, you're on your own. We are entirely not interested in this thing. So it was for me. I was like, okay, this is cool. This is cool. I like it. I like it. So it also gave me a foresight as to how uncomfortable whatever is going on currently is for them. So I was like, okay, very cool. If they were willing to spread propaganda sharp just to kill the story, it should tell you that even they know that this written address is a nail on their own coffin. So I was like, this is a very good development. So a lot happened yesterday, but I mean, the real focus is the written address. So please, guys, let's retweet the space. The tweet is free. I know Elon Musk said some people should pay for some things, but believe me, the tweet is not part of it. So please retweet the space, share the space. Let's get a lot of more people in here because the effect of this is not. I mean, believe me, I know Violent Space will start in about 4 hours here about. So this space is supposed to last about 3 hours. I would have really preferred if I just relax, maybe even watch one Netflix movie before Violent Space starts. That would have been a very good thing to do for me. But I really don't want us to, like, personally, and I know a lot of the one MMC guys also share that sentiment. We don't want any gap in communication. We want it to be that as soon as anything comes out, we are putting it, we are clear, we are crunching on it. That's really the gameplay here. So please share it. We are also live on YouTube. I'll share the YouTube link on Jumbotron very soon. So currently we are live. We are streaming live on YouTube as well. And that's really for people that, I don't know if we might be able to get the radio running today, but for people that want to follow and are not on Twitter, they can also follow on YouTube. I'll put the link up on the Jumbotron as soon as I invite you, Simashwe, to give his own welcome address. And please, if you've read the written address, feel free to request the mic. If you have a question, that's really why we are here. If you have a question, if you have, if you also discovered something that excited you, come and share it with us. That's another major reason why we are here. Please, it's not for pointing out anything. I don't want to be honest, I don't think there's anything tangible to point out. In fact, the only thing that people wanted to point out yesterday was things like, oh, why didn't Peter Obi put results? I think some people were looking forward to seeing Excel sheets, tables of results. But take note that all that have been tendered. I mean, the ones that are necessary, really, have been tendered with our witness. And if you read the petition, which maybe we might read some of those places that made reference to it, you discover that even it was said that it had said there that it has been tendered, So there was no need coming here to. So I don't know why a lot of people were looking at. And another thing is, like Yusuf Maxwell said, the way Peter Obi went about this petition is the best way. I can't emphasize this enough. The best way possible. Any other way aside this, we would have just opened ourselves to shooting ourselves in the foot. So it's very important. All right, quickly, because we don't have much time, please share the space. Let's get so many people in here. Let's crunch this. Key part of what we'll be focusing on today will be the objections. So we are going to look at the objections by LP. I think a lot of people have not looked at that. So there are two, aside the written address that a lot of people have read, there are two other documents that people have not paid attention to. One is the objections by LP. LP also objected to a couple of documents. And if you were here last week when we talked about the objections by Oladipo, you will so much appreciate the objections by LP. You will love it. So there's that document. Then there's also the documents where they also talked about their reply. When someone objects, you have the right to reply, which is so the replies that we are expecting from APC is really very much their replies to LP's new matters and LP's objections as well. So it's not as if they are now going to re-argue the issues in their reply for people that care to know about that. I know a couple of people think, why are they going to now come back and be replying to us again when we've already replied to them? No, they are not coming to now say, oh, my lord, we shared this before, but because they have said this, we are now saying this. No, they are only coming to say, regarding to this thing that they pointed out, Chief Master explained it very clearly yesterday, because even I myself, I didn't understand, but he explained it very clearly, and what it means is, they are just going to, clarify some things. It's not as if they are coming to reply from the start again. So for people that think about it that way, that's not what it is. So we are going to look at the documents where LP replied to their objections, and it was so funny, it was so cool when I was reading it yesterday. Before we can now probably also look at one or two areas that we didn't touch yesterday regarding. Yesterday we dealt extensively with the areas of forfeiture, extensively. I think they are one of, I always say the happiest part or the best part. Like every part for me is like the best part. One of the best part for me in the petition was every issue that the legal team attended to, every issue. They did it so extensively. I mean, you will almost think that they are overcooking the beans, like in such a way that they went all out. As in, I don't know how. This morning when I woke up on the group on our channel, the 1 Million Man Match crew guys, the first thing I said, and I'm sure they will attest, was that, let me just quickly say it. The LP legal team are a group of legal geniuses. As in, I'm so impressed, to be honest. And it's not really because, I'm obedient or, I'm supporting Peter Obi. It's really out of objectivity. If you were in mindset space yesterday, you also discover that even some of the seemingly neutral legal people or mindset space, you will see them there. Everybody was literally impressed with this meeting address. And I'm like, oh no. So when the whole rumor of, I mean, it's not confirmed, so I'm not even willing to, start to talk about that at all, to be honest. I'm not, David put it out yesterday, and he also said it as a reported speech. He didn't try to say it as, I've confirmed this. He just said that, oh, he trusts whatever this source used to say. And all that. So when that came out yesterday, the first thing I told myself that, if I be Tinubu, even me, I will go after LP lawyers. Even me. Because this written address is enough. I will be so mad. I will go after them. So I was like, I don't blame him if he wants to do that. But the truth is, this is really the Nigerian people versus the versus the elite. So there's nothing much they can do. But for now, quickly, I'll just bring on Yusuf Maxwell to give his welcome address, and we'll start to delve into the different aspects. I'll do some skim reading of the objections, and they'll reply to the objections. Then maybe Yusuf Maxwell can explain areas that he thinks is worthy of pointing out. We'll take a couple of submissions, questions, and a couple of other things. So, Yusuf Maxwell, I don't know if you are available to speak now, but I want to believe you are. Are you there? Okay. I want to get a couple of speakers up. Okay, maybe Yusuf Maxwell is trying to fix one or two things. I mean, it's Saturday, so it's understandable.
Yeah, you see Max first. Yeah,
okay. No. All right. Go ahead. While Yusuf Maxwell is speaking, I'll put up the YouTube link on the Jumbotron.
Okay, let me just give my own brief. Do I call it introductory, or what am I going to call it? Good afternoon to everybody. This is just about 12 minutes before the hour of 1 p.m. It's a beautiful cloudy weather here in Abuja. And of course, a pleasure to be speaking to you. Well, me in Nigeria, I know we've spoken earlier before now, but good morning to you once again. I see very beautiful and wonderful people out here. Good morning to each and every one of you. My respected elder brother from the Western land, Jimmy. I greet you, Anka Dede, the entire team, Uncle Aka, Ginello. I celebrate each and every one of you. Mr. Idowu, you are welcome. So, yesterday was a very overwhelming day. Like, it was more like a marathon because immediately the documents dropped. Everybody was trying to grasp the document as quickly as possible. I could tell you when I got the PDP document first, so I'd already read like up to like 20 pages of the PDP's documents before the LP document got to me. The thing is, I had to drop the PDP document and immediately started going through it. So with the whole spacing thing, from the 1 million match crew, from going home, from trying to treat myself, I went on to the mindset space. Sincerely speaking, I've not even been able to go through the objections, and it's very wonderful that we'll be talking about it here. So what I'll be trying to do is just doing read and explain, more like what it's going to be, because I'm not ready to really understand it. But we'll see how the conversation goes today. We're able to do a lot of justice to the document, and we couldn't finish it. But for those who are on mindset space, I gave you a general overview of what the document entails, and we'll be doing that here today as much as we can. We'll look at the objections and all. We saw very wonderful arguments from the 4 issues for determinations that were raised. Wonderful arguments, I bet you. They're all wonderful arguments, well written, well drafted, well argued. So, however, there's something I noticed. There's something I noticed about that document. Some of you might have noticed it. You feel that the document may not be exhaustive as you may want it to be. Like I told you, 40 pages is a very limited number of pages for you to be able to prove a presidential election of this magnitude. So, you need to be able to take advantage of the craft of drafting and argue the most important and relevant points as they relate to your issues for determination, which you have already couched or which you have already drafted. When I mean couch, it means to compose. So that is what happens. Now, another angle to it is that this is not the only document. We are still expecting the response to the INEC document and the response to the APC's document. So from these other 2 documents, we may see them elaborate on some other issues which you couldn't find here. Information available to me is that even what's their name? APC. Sorry, Tinubu, the first, the respondent, that they've already gone a long way in preparing their reply to our final written address, which we got a hold of yesterday. The document was filed day before yesterday night. It was filed day before yesterday night, so they've been working on it throughout yesterday. usually the reply is not so much. The reply is not a lengthy document. Like I told you, you don't argue fresh issues. You just reply on points of law. This particular angle, this particular section that has been provided, what are your views? And that is basically it. So hopefully we'll get a hold of that document. I've seen a page of the document, and I wouldn't like to comment on it until the entire document is out. So those are the things that we'll be looking at today. Please, I usually enjoy these kinds of spaces when people ask questions, and not just asking questions but asking probing questions. Because believe you me, when I'm giving you a summary of the document, I may choose some aspects that I feel I may want to talk about and talk about them here. But if you bring probing questions, we may now need to go through other aspects of the documents which I may not be able to cover during summary, or well-meaning Nigeria may not be able to cover. And I can bet you with all confidence that with well-meaning Nigeria on this space, all your questions will be answered. So it is very, very guaranteed. Any question you want to bring, just go and get them for well-meaning Nigeria, and we'll be able to, do justice to it. So thank you once again to everybody who is on the space. It's a pleasure, to be here with you. Like he said, today is a Saturday. I actually got to the office some 30 minutes ago, and my plan is just to cross leg on the table, eat, watch some movies, and I was about to turn on Netflix. I just saw well-meaning Nigeria's message that, guy, this retail address will never conclude that will. And I was like, okay, why not? So let's enjoy this session today and we'll see how it goes. Well-meaning, over to you.
All right, thank you very much, UC. I mean, you want set up. You see, I've told you people now that before I open the space, I have to go and ask if he's available because he's the one that can answer the questions. So I went to ask him first. If you are not available, let me just gently go and do my Netflix and rest. But when he said, okay, I mean, for God and for country, I said, okay, no wahala, let's go. I mean, let's just want it to be a short but very direct and impactful space. That's why I want you to share. Meanwhile, the link for the YouTube is also on the Jumbotron. So, in case if you have people that usually like to listen or that you want them to follow the case, maybe all those people you don't take who cannot head, we're not the 1 year one. So you get some people who don't follow the you say, guy, forget, no, they're big, nothing. And you don't want to say, okay, call here out for yourself. Just tell them that you can share the link with them, even though they say they are not on Twitter, so that they can follow from time to time. Quickly, I'll just take, if you're in the speaker section and you want to speak, just put your hands up. So I'll take those that want to speak now before I go into the documents that I want us to go through relating to the objection. And you see, yeah, I know you said he has not read the objections, but you see, I'm sure you before two people talk finish, we don't already now finish because it's very direct. It's very, I mean, I didn't even need to. I said,
Okay, I tell you, say I don't like to read book. You say before two people talk,
you
say
go
I
see
feel
him
on
now.
it.
You go see
Which
him.
kind of setup you want to do like
You
this?
go see him. I'm telling you, it's very direct. As a matter of fact, I think it was last week Saturday, or I can't really remember the day, either Saturday or Monday, that we had the space where we talked about Tinubu and Shetima's objections, where we were pointing out, I mean, their entire objection was really based off like three things. Three things. The first one was that the petitioners are not challenging this state, this state is so in their petition. They did not say that challenging this state in their petition, and we're saying that they said all states of the federation. In fact, they said so. We were like, they are just trying to play on technicality. The second major point, and this was what all what their objection was all about. So I'm not summarizing. I'm telling you what the three main things that it was all about. The second major point was that the petitioners. So for IREF documents, things that are computer brought from computer, they made reference to section 84, I think, of the Evidence Act, and which talked about if you are presenting an evidence made from computer. Do you know the funny thing? You see it. The response you gave on this space that day, is what the lawyers, LP lawyers, also gave. As a matter of fact, when I read it, I was like, it's like saying these people, it's almost as I was like, what's going on? It's almost as if it's sinking It's very thick.
Oga mo go Mama Nkechi bar, may you call me to bar very, very fast. Now. If I immediately just put Odemi San, immediately, you understand?
Mama Nkechi. Anyway.
My brother, the only bar where I can go call myself to now will be that.
Anyway, so it was quite interesting. But anyway, let's just take let's hear what Art design. Please, if you come up to speak as much as possible, you can make it short so that we can bulk of the space can be for the legal documents that we want to go through and enlighten people about. So, Art design, please go ahead.
Right. Good afternoon, everyone. Please confirm you can hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Right. Good afternoon, well-meaning Nigeria. Mr. Maxwell, good afternoon. And all I can say is God bless you for all you have done for us. I am just so excited this afternoon after going through that document yesterday. I really enjoyed reading a document like that. I've never, ever in my life thought about following a case in the court, talk less of, looking forward to a document to read. I did not spend time reading the addresses of the respondents because it got me. I wasn't coordinated when I read it because the document itself wasn't called. So when I started it and got things mixed up, I just let go and decided to depend on what I hear on Spaces. But this document, I have gone through it. It is so interesting, and all the evidences that were tendered in court, and all that were admitted as exhibits. When it was that time, a lot of people were saying that the fact that it's been admitted in the court doesn't mean that the judges will look at it or something along that line. But, reading these documents, especially those that were tendered by the expert witnesses, it seems to me that everything has been spoken to. It seems to me that the way the response or the address of Labour Party has been written, they have touched on every of those evidences. And I don't know how the judges will not look at those evidences because of that. It's just amazing. Now, Mr. Maxwell, I came up because of you. You are here. Having had a look at all the everything that has been said in that document, the later part, in fact, the ending of it was a little bit too technical for me. I'm not a lawyer. I've never done anything legal wise before. When I read it, it was like a journal. It was like I'm studying. It was like I don't know, because when this issue of 25%. They started by trying to bring up the fact in section 299 of the Constitution. But to me, I don't know if it's me. That's why I'm asking. It sounded like in one instance, it will be accepted that the FCT and has made it a 37th state in the country, and in another way, they will now debunk that fact. It was too technical for me. And I'm beseeching, please, can you please throw more light on what was happening there? Thank you so much.
Okay, I was hoping this much. Okay, that was a good question. I know that was a very good question.
Okay. I had your question. Thank you for that question. Now, when you talk about 25%, first, it is always important to establish the fact that you are questioning the interpretation of a provision of the law. And one of the things I said earlier on this space is that if you are talking about interpreting a provision of the Constitution, you may not really need to adduce any evidence whatsoever, but you need to canvass very cogent and swaying arguments. That is to sway the minds of the court. One of the things that they try to do is to bring the court's notice to the rules of interpretation. Because indeed, if you want the court to interpret a section, you need to remind them of the right rules that they need to follow in interpreting the Constitution. The issue, like I've always stated, is that Tinubu and the rest of the other respondents are not arguing that and is not conjunctive. I've always tried to clarify this. They agree that and is conjunctive. But in agreeing that and is conjunctive, they are saying that when you add FCT to the 36, it becomes 37. When it becomes 37, you now do the 25% from those 37. But the petitioners are now arguing that no, you need to do 25% or two-third majority. Sorry, two-third majority now. Not from the 37, but from 36 after you have gotten two-third from that. After you have gotten two-third from that 36, before you now add FCT. Because FCT is a sine qua non. It is a requirement. It is compulsory. That is the argument of the petitioners. Now they try to, I'm trying to go over this particular argument since you said it was kind of technical. Now they drew the court's mind to the first rule of interpretation, which is the literal rule of interpretation. It is the position of the law that when a statute provides for something or a word, that you need to give it its literal interpretation. And means and, it means conjunctive. That is the literal rule. Or means disjunctive. That is the literal interpretation. However, by the principles of interpretation, if taking and as its literal meaning will manifest injustice or will manifest ambiguity, you now not need to go through the literal interpretation, but you need to go through another interpretation. It could be by following the mindset of the drafters of the Constitution. What were the intentions of the lawmakers when they were drafting that Constitution, when they used the word there? So this is what they try to do. They refer to several court judgments. They refer to other provisions of the law. When you look at section 299 of the Constitution, it states that, yes, boss. When you look at section 299 of the Constitution, it states that there is a need for you to take FCT as if it is a state. Now, the status of taking something as if you take Maxwell as if he is the first son of his parents because of a particular event, it does not mean that I have automatically become the first son of my parents, because definitely I'm not the first son. So, if you, at that instance, want to take FCT, I'm telling you what their argument is here. It's not like it's my position. If you want to take FCT as if it is a state, it means that for the purpose of that time being, it does not mean that FCT has become a state. And the argument there is that you can only take FCT as if it is a state when you are referring to the judicial powers, legislative powers, and executive powers. Because the Constitution rightly mentioned that the same way you have a legislature for the states, the state houses of assembly, you will also have a legislature for FCT. That is what? Legislative powers. The same way you have courts for the states. The same way, I'm busy, I'm coming. The same way, please, sorry. The same way you have courts for the states, state high courts, state courts, court of Sharia court of the state, and all of those courts. It's the same way that you have the FCT high court. That is what? Judicial powers. Now, in the executive powers, the same way you have executive structure for the states is the same way you shall have an executive structure for the FCT. Then the president is now regarded as that executive structure for the FCT or for the federation, who can appoint a minister to superintend, the activities of the FCT. That was the argument. So they tried to create a dichotomy between taking these powers and interpreting what is provided in section 134 of the 1999 Constitution. Because you cannot argue it without, you cannot change the wordings of the Constitution. In certain provisions, the Constitution says that you take FCT as if it is a state. Yes, but in what context? And they argued rightly that owing to the provisions of this law, provisions of social section of the Constitution, section 3, section 8, section this and that, that you cannot include them when referring to the votes that are arising from it, because even section 299 falls under a different chapter entirely and only provides for the administrative nature of the FCT. Please, I apologize, I need to attend to something right now.
All right, thank you very much, UC. You know what I said? Thank you, Desire. You know what I said? That was a very good question. It means you read the document quite well, because you know the feeling you said you have? I had that exact same feeling when I read it, but the feeling changed when I started going forward. And I'll just point it out straight from the document. UC brings in like the legal perspective and touches. But because me, I'm not a lawyer, I can only talk straight from what I'm seeing. As a matter of fact, when we were reading yesterday when we were reading the forfeiture and double nomination, I almost thought that these LP guys cannot argue any other argument better than this is the best. I mean, I was so hyped about the way they argue forfeiture that I thought it was the best. Not until I saw them argue 25%. As a matter of fact, the way they argue 25% was it's phenomenal. Let me put it like that. Let me use the word of Uncle Akaji. Goodness gracious. It's phenomenal. So let me point out some very key points that they pointed out. So Desire. So what they did, like you said, rightly so, because I too was wondering, because even at some point they even said that the FCT is seen as a state. I'm like, why would you say that kind of thing? I was like, okay, let me read further. But do you know what happened? So anybody that tries to argue section 134 of the Constitution, they often argue it with section 299 and try to say, FCT as a state, FCT is supposed to be considered as a state and all that. So what the lawyers did was that they came, one of the best ways to beat someone is to go and beat him where he stands. Especially if you are sure that you can beat him or her there. So they went to where APC would stand on, or where Oladipo was going to stand on, or was standing on, to go and beat him there. So it doesn't look as if, okay, I'm talking from my point of view. So literally, what they did was, I'm coming to your point of view to beat you at your point of view. Not, I will leave my point of view. Let me come and beat you where, from that point of view that you think you are standing. So what they did. So they first initially went to some court cases where, relating to, FCDA, and a couple of times where, it has been interpreted as FCT can be a state, right? Then they now went further to say, and this is in page, I think 34, and the second paragraph, say, although all this case touches only on section 299 of the Constitution, none of them interpreted section 299 together with section 134 subsection 2. And they cannot only guide our interpretation of the provision, as it is the law that a case is only an authority for what it decides. So what I was saying was that we agree that all those sections, people have interpreted as a state, but it can be only a state in places where it can be a state. They went further to explain that what the Constitution said, right? Of course, they said the literal reading of section 299 means that 25% must be in FCT. So when they explained section 299, if you have read section 299 of the Constitution, it is a full sentence. What he said is that the provision of the Constitution that apply to Federal Capital Territory Abuja as if it were a state of the Federation. But it didn't stop there. He now said, and accordingly, all the legislative powers, I will not read all that, but the point was that I was saying, when it comes to the three arms of government, every state has the three arms of government. They have executive in form of governor, they have the judiciary in form of state high court, they have the legislative arm in form of the state house of assembly, right? So, because FCT cannot just be running on autopilot, FCT needed those parts, so the Constitution, the drafters of the Constitution factored in that, okay, since we cannot give FCT a governor, the president will act as a governor. Since we cannot give FCT a national assembly, a House of Assembly, the National Assembly will act for that. Since we cannot give FCT, a different court, we have FCT High Court, right? So that's what that constitution said. It was not interpreting it in relation to Section 134. As a matter of fact, there was an argument that they proved that for me was very key in explaining that particular part. And this was, in page 35, I think the top paragraph said, certainly, reading Section 299 of the Constitution to mean that the FCT exists as a state of the Federation for all purposes. That means we are saying FCT is a state for any purpose at all, whatsoever. He said it renders redundant the word of the drafters in Section 134 2B that the winning candidate must have 25% in each of at least 2/3 of the states and Federal Capital Territory. So what that really means, which is true, is that if you are going to say that, oh, the FCT is a state for everything, to consider FCT as a state for everything, that means that part of the Constitution and the Federal Capital Territory is redundant. Redundancy means you bring in something that is not needed. You didn't need to put it there, but why would you put it? And usually, nothing in the Constitution can be regarded as redundant. So every word in the Constitution is usually seen as it is there for a purpose. Even a word. That's why we're talking about and. That's why they talk about things like shall. All those, every word in the Constitution has nothing, you can't regard anything as redundant. So that's why they said that the Constitution may have made it look as if 37 as the FCT and FCT act at 37 states, but it's in some specific instances. And in instances where FCT will not act as a state, the Constitution will separate it. So, which simply means if the Constitution, the drafters wanted to say, okay, the winner will get 25% in 2/3 of, 37 states, which APC is trying to say, they would have just said, they would have just stopped it like this, that the winner will need 25% in each of the 27, in each of the states of the Federation. They will not add and the FCT, because everybody would have assumed at that point that and the FCT means FCT is already part of it. They've already said states of the Federation. So what they did was they went to that point to agree FCT is a state, but now clarified that FCT can be only a state in certain circumstances. They now went further to mention that in cases where FCT cannot be the state, this Constitution separates it. And you know what they did to kill that argument? It was very funny. They did two things to kill the argument. They went to the Kano State issue that was raised by Tinubu to kill the argument. Because in Kano State, as of the time when they did that judgment, that particular law in Kano State as of the time, the way it read was that so let me read what that particular law said at the time. That law at the time just said that the candidate must have 25% in at least 2/3 votes cast in all the states of the Federation. It didn't put and the Federal Capital Territory. Remember, then there was a Federal Capital Territory. It may not be called Federal Capital Territory that time, but there was a Capital Territory. It was Lagos. So then they didn't include all this thing. He said, hence, look at what they wrote, and this is page 36, the second paragraph. Somewhere in that paragraph, after they said, let me just read the entire statement. He said, further, going into the mischief of the additional requirement of 35% in the FCT, we note that the 1979 Constitution was completely silent on this requirement and only stopped short at stating that the winning candidate must have 25% of at least 2/3 of vote cast in all the states of the Federation. So full stop, no and the FCT. They now said, hence, the deliberate amendment of the drafters of the 1999 Constitution to include the additional requirement of 25% in FCT must not be rendered redundant. Which means they are trying to say adding and the FCT to change the former Constitution is not a redundant thing. I don't know if you understand. And I'll go upward. I can see Doja. I'll go upward to explain. And I'm reading everything from the document so people know that, okay, this is not anybody. I will go upward to explain when they talked about the rule of interpretation. They said that the Supreme Court had said different rules. And the rules are really as follows. The first one is where the words of the Constitution are clear and unambiguous, a literal interpretation will be applied. That's the first scenario. Then the second was now, where there's ambiguity in the literal interpretation, a holistic interpretation will be resorted to. The third one was all sections must be read together and purposively so that no section is rendered redundant or superfluous. So which simply means you can't render any place redundant. Listen, the fourth one was if the words remain ambiguous, the intent of the makers of the Constitution must be considered to determine the mischief sought to be cured. So if there's ambiguity after all this, you will now start to think about the intent. E, that they wrote, the court is entitled to consider how the law stood when the statute was passed, what the mischief was for which the old law did not provide, and the remedy which has been provided for by in the new law. So if you read this entire thing together, you will know that, I mean, that argument was top-notch. I mean, after making reference to Kanu, do you know what they further went to do? They now made reference to, Section 134, where, it talked about rerun, like a second election, if no one meets that requirement. Do you know what that part of the Constitution said? And I'll just go there quickly before, since we are talking about this 25%, I just wanted us to look at it extensively. See what the legal team said. And this is very phenomenal. In the requirement to be president, in section 134, subsection 2B, he said that, a candidate in an election contested by more than two, okay, let me just read it into. I wanted to. So that section is saying, a candidate for an election to the office of the president shall be deemed to have been duly elected, where being more than two candidates for the election, A, he has the highest number of votes cast. I think I talked about this extensively yesterday. The difference between highest number of votes and majority of votes. He has the highest number of votes cast in the election. And B, he has not less than 1/4 of the vote cast at the election in each of at least 2/3 of the states of the states in the federation and the federal capital territory. So if you notice this point, they specifically say states in the federation and the federal capital territory. If you go to section 4, where he now talked about what will happen, or I think it's even section 3, where he now talked about what will happen if someone does not meet that requirement, which will now be a runoff. Section 3, look at what he said. He said, in a default of a candidate duly elected in accordance with subsection 2 of the section, there shall be a second election in accordance with the subsection 4, right, of this section, at which the only candidate that shall the only candidate shall be A, the candidate with the highest number of votes at the election. Then B, see where they pointed out. B, one among the remaining candidates, which has a majority of the highest votes, which has a majority of votes in the highest number of states. At this point, they did not say states and the FCT, which simply means the Constitution is very clear. When it wants to separate the FCT, to separate it. When it doesn't want to not separate it. So, I mean, when I saw this argument, I'm like, this is, I don't know, but it's a very strong argument, to be honest. But, so Adesanya, get the point here. Okay, Adesanya, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Sorry.
So get the point that they said that so that they can beat them in their own point of view.
Yeah. I think both of you have explained it. Yeah, with that explanation, all I can do is to go back and read it all over again and extract the real meaning. But thank you so much. In fact, this section should be published. I think it should be published. Honestly, it's too rich to abandon it. Thank you so much, well-meaning Nigeria. I'm grateful.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, I think Doda, please just hold on. Let me take like 1 or 2 speakers and I'll come to you. Ido, please go ahead.
Oh, great submission. Women in Nigeria. I don't know if UC Maxwell is still available, because I would need to get clarification on.
Yeah, UC Maxwell is available. Go ahead.
Okay, great. All right. All right. So just a quick one. I think we need to give PO's legal team their flowers. The response to the submissions of the second and third respondents is top-notch. I've gone through the documents. I'm still reading through now. and I discovered that it was, well detailed, concise, and straight to the point. So it's even it's void of ambiguity. So I find it so, delighting to read, and I think we have a legal team to be proud of in this case. So, but my question is as regards, the use of forfeiture. If you check the US, usage, it's a bit different from, the Nigerian context. So based on what I read, so according to, US Congress, they substitute the meaning of forfeiture, for fine. So I want to know if forfeited in this sense, because the APC are saying that it is not a case of of conviction. So since it's not conviction, it means the second respondent cannot be disqualified. But from what the PO's legal team said is the fact that it's a case of fraud, dishonesty. So based on this, they are bringing the argument to disqualify the candidate because, of course, he admitted to forfeiting the $460 to the US government. So in that case, it's a case of fraud. So, and since is about dishonesty, lack of integrity, it means he's not qualified, to contest for the election. So I still need more clarification on the use of forfeiture, uh, taking a look at, the US usage and the Nigeria usage and how it applies to the ongoing petition in court. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ido. I don't know if Yusuf wants to take address it.
Yeah, let me respond to him. The usage of forfeiture is no different. Now, what the lawyers have tried to intelligently do is to look at the word forfeiture and not whether it is criminal or civil. Because if you can get what forfeiture means, then you can be able to link it, because we already know it is an established fact. It is not discountenanced that there was a criminal case or there was a case of money laundering or drug related offense for which led to that forfeiture. So we are not asking whether it is civil or criminal. The provision of the law states that if a person have been sentenced, please can you pull that up, section 137, subsection 1, paragraph D, well-meaning, very quickly, so that we look at the clear wordings of
I did for you. It says.
I trust you.
So a person. So it starts from section 137. Starts from a person shall not be qualified for election to the office of president if, now to subsection D, if he is under a sentence of death imposed by any competent court of law or tribunal in Nigeria, or a sentence of imprisonment or fine by for any offense involving dishonesty or fraud by whatsoever name called, or for any other offense imposed on him by any court or tribunal, or substituted by a competent authority for any other sentence imposed on him by such a court or tribunal, or before they now went to E.
All right, thank you very much. Now it says any sentence of imprisonment or fine, and they brought cases from the USS Austin's case, several other authorities that are in that document, to refer to what the court has viewed a forfeiture to mean. Now, they also made reference to section 494 of the Administration of Criminal Justice Act, which provides very clearly that a forfeiture is a payment of a pecuniary fine. So once you pay a pecuniary, once there is a pecuniary forfeiture, that is monetary forfeiture, be. I don't know. My background is kind of noisy this morning. Just give me some seconds. Let me change.
Okay, I think you see. While we wait for UC, let me just quickly take maybe I don't know if you should come immediately, but let me quickly take another speaker. But if UC is not back after that, we'll take.
Can you hear me? Well, me.
Okay, you are back. Go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead.
All right. I wasn't hearing anybody. So what I was saying is they made reference to the provisions of Section 494 of the Administration of Criminal Justice Act, which rightly interpreted a fine to include pecuniary forfeiture. All they try to do is to persuade the minds of the court to understand that when you talk about forfeiture, on what basis did this person forfeit the money? It was in a case that relates to a criminal case. It's not whether the forfeiture was civil or criminal forfeiture. What is the case that led to that forfeiture is the question. And they rightly made mention of the particular provisions of the US criminal law, which relates to drug-related offenses or whatever the case may be from the US laws. They were able to mention even the special agent, talked about the US Customs Service and everything that relates to that case to rightly posit that the case is a transaction of a criminal action. And then from that criminal action, there was proceeds from the criminal action. Can you divorce proceeds of crime from the crime itself? That is the important question to ask. Can you divorce proceeds of crime from the crime itself? Can a person steal some monies and then you deem the money not to be criminal monies, but civil monies which you obtained probably from contract transactions? So they even were able to look at I think they refer to this Ojus Okalu's case, which talks about money laundering and how people use the activities of laundering to turn dirty money into clean money. And that is what they try to canvass there before in their final written address to prove that indeed there was a forfeiture. The meaning of forfeiture is to divest property, the divestiture of property or as in proceeds from a crime. So they were able to link the money to the drug case and show that indeed the money arose from there. So your questions as to the plethora of foreign judgments that they had to refer to in that document is only to solidify their arguments on it, because the judgment came from America. So you needed to even show what it actually meant in America before you now come down, and which was an intelligent thing to do.
UC, are you there? Okay, I think we lost. I think we lost UC, but I was going to say what UC just said. If you read the order in which they argued that case, it was superb. They started from America, tried to explain what's for, because I mean, I personally, and this is from my layman thought of it. After this, I'll come to Dr. Barrister Doja. When I saw that, what first came to my mind was, I mean, if I want to go and take something from somebody, right? If I go and take something from somebody, I think the best thing is to ask that person how they use it, right? So the best person to ask the meaning of forfeiture, since I'm using a US judgment, I don't think it's okay to say, oh, even though they call forfeiture fine in the US, in Nigeria, I don't call it forfeiture. When that particular crime was committed in the US, judged in the US, enforced in the US, you can ask, you came to Nigeria, you changed the meaning. So I like the fact that they went through that, explain what forfeiture meant in the US, but they didn't stop there. So they started from Supreme Court of different places in the US, came to Supreme Court of Nigeria, made reference to Justice Ariwola, who happens to be the current CJN, now came to the appeal court. And I think they even made reference to Justice Samani, who is I can't remember if that's where they made reference, but they came to the appeal court, judgment that the appeal courts have given. So like, that's just be breaking it down, becoming, you finally arrive at your destination. Barrister Doja, please go ahead. I think we'll get UC Maxwell back soon. Okay, UC Maxwell is coming back. But Barrister Doja, go ahead. Barrister Doja, are you there? Okay, maybe it's not close to his phone. All right, if it's not close to his phone, before Juicy comes, Chini, please go ahead. Juicy, check. I've sent you.
Thank you, well-meaning. I really, when I was reading the address, the part of the whole FCT state and all of that, it got me startled. Like at the point, my heart was palpitating because each of the beginning of that part of the address was saying treating FCT as if is a state, as if is a state. But there was a part of the address I read that kind of gave me that lightened up my heart. Let me just read it out. It says that, I think it's section 20. It says, certainly, the Constitution stipulates that Nigeria shall be a federation consisting of states and a federal capital territory. Then in the third line, it says there shall be 36 states in Nigeria. So my conclusion on that part of the address is that for the sake of running the FCT, for the sake of running the federal capital territory, it has to be considered as if it's a state. Because the president who oversees that seat cannot necessarily just be running it like every other governor will run their states. So we need the ministers, we need the Federal Capital Development Authority, we need those agencies attached to the FCT in order to ensure that there is a thorough functionality of that part of the government. And the Constitution says, and 36 states and the FCT. So for every other part of running an FCT, it has to be treated as if it's a state. But for the Constitution to say 2/3 of 24 states, right, in Nigeria, that the presidential candidate must win, why I feel it included and the FCT is to just put a reminder that you should not forget that this is part of the Nigerian Republic. This is part of us. So the Constitution would have said 37 states of the Federation. If he said that 2/3 of 37 states of the Federation, if he said that, it would have meant that it's like treating Nigeria as a country with 37 states. It could have said 2/3 of 26 states, 24 states in Nigeria, and Imo State. It would have said 2/3 of 24 states in Nigeria and Taraba State. But for it to specifically say and FCT, you know, reading that just gave me that satisfaction. Because people that are arguing that FCT is a state, it should be treated as such. It's not supposed to be treated separately as if it's different from the rest of Nigerian states. The Constitution treats Nigeria as a country with 36 states and the FCT. So if FCT was just a state, it would have just been any other state, it would have considered any other state, like I said earlier, Taraba or Imo or Jigawa or whatever state. But mentioning an FCT gives it that uniqueness. In fact, when I read that part of the Constitution, it was as if some revelation just came into my head. Initially, I was hearing Jimmy's voice in my head, conformity theory, you know. But the moment I read that, it just kind of threw more light to the fact that it could have been any other state mentioned, but why mention FCT? That makes it more important that you must win 25% of the FCT state. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. You want to complete what you were saying before? Or if not?
I didn't even know where you guys. All of a sudden, I just saw that I wasn't on the speaker. I couldn't even find my mic.
You froze. I mean, you were trying to talk about how they made reference to the Supreme Court, the courts in the US before coming down to the courts in Nigeria. Like, we're trying to create that connection.
Yes, they had to come down to the courts in Nigeria to also consider, you know, what the courts have said in relation to it. Now, I must state categorically that when you want to argue interpretation of words, there are very important things that you must note. For you to even interpret a word that is used in a constitution or in a body of law, you don't even have to when interpreting it, you cannot interpret it without considering other connecting words to it. So those are some of the things that they've rightly argued in that case as it relates to the forfeiture. Seriously, I've lost everything I was saying. It's all right. Let's just proceed with the conversation.
All right. But I think Ido already got the point. So, by Sadoja, are you here now? or maybe it's even network. All right, please be in the speaker section and you intend to speak. Ensure your hand is up. I actually wanted us to go into some of the objections that were pointed out, but I haven't noticed. I think you see somewhat in a noisy place, so hopefully before we get some speakers.
No, let's just, whatever it is, we can proceed.
Okay.
And I feel like if questions, we can always take questions back into the final written address. Yesterday on the space, some areas that we did not really argue is the 25%,
Yes.
and 25% are majorly legal arguments. Like I said, remember that we didn't tender any documents in court in relation to it. These are just legal arguments, and we'll be able to explain it because of the question that somebody asked here. So, and then the area of what other area we didn't touch that yesterday? Did we touch double nomination? Okay, non-compliance. So if we can talk about that, then we can just proceed into the objections and consider the arguments there.
Okay. I mean, I think I was actually looking at. Let me see if we could. I think the major points of non-compliance, but nonetheless, let's. I wanted us to talk about the objection. Then whatever times, because I know a lot of people have read. So I wanted questions from the written address itself to be the source of us talking about the written address in itself. But let's just take a couple of speakers. Let's take Ichie. If your hand is not up, I'm sorry, I cannot call you.
Good day, everyone. Thank you, Well-Meaning. Thank you, UC Maxwell, and thank you for all you're doing. I mean, so I have read the document, and honestly, interestingly for me, what I did not know before, that is surprising me, that came as a surprise to me actually, is the fact that INEC actually certified the blood polling unit results. That's a surprise. I mean, what exactly was the intention? What were they planning? I mean, there were no numbers. The numbers could not be used for anything, and they certified those polling unit results. Anyway, I think that just nails it for me that there was no presidential election on the 25th of February. And apart from that, I also saw where they said that apart from the blood polling unit results, there were also about, I think, 39K polling unit results that were either blood, wrong results, or, unavailable, amounting to about 5 unidentifiable. Thank you. Amounting to about 5.5 million accredited voters, because I think some people are mixing it up. That those 39,000 polling units actually have over 23 million registered voters and 5.5 million accredited voters. If this up to 5.5 million votes cannot be accounted for, then why did INEC pronounce somebody a winner? And the one that is even a surprise to me that I did not know before, honestly, is the fact that INEC actually certified the blood polling unit results. I think I need clarification in this regard. That's number one. Number two is the fact that I know Ashwaju will be disqualified if we have anything called judiciary in this country, because even if you find a way, in the unlikely event that they're able to get away with the drug case, which will be shameful and disgraceful, what about all the tons and tons of forged documents? Those ones are within our jurisdiction. If there's any foreign judgment, whatever it is, I know it's been argued, it's been debunked, but if criminally some of the judges can say, okay, look, we can't bring it into this situation, it will not escape the forgery case. It will never escape it. So my question is that after getting Tinubu out of the way, are we in a position to now determine between Obi and Atiku who, I mean, I know we have the numbers, but maybe by the virtue of polling unit results, but I'm talking based on the evidences that have been placed before the tribunal. Are we in a position to now determine, despite all of the irregularities and the blood result and millions and millions of votes that cannot be accounted for, are we in a position to now say, okay, between Obi and Atiku, this is the rightful winner of the election? I doubt it very much, but I would really want UC Maxwell or one of the lawyers to address that. Thank you. That's my submission.
All right. Thank you very much, Ichie. Mr. Maxwell, I don't know if you would want to address that.
Yeah, let me quickly do that. So your first question about the certifying of those documents, it's very simple. Now, by virtue of the principles of law, when you consider Section 167 of the Evidence Act, it states that it will be presumed that the court will always presume that a person who has a legitimate document, an original document, and fails to tender it, that the document will be presumed against his favor. That is what the law says. So the question or the arguments that were furthered is this: if Section 64, subsection 4 of the Electoral Act required INEC, before collating and announcing, to verify or check if what they have in their hand, the true copy, that is the hard copy they have in their hand, if it is the same thing with what has been uploaded to the collation system. So the question now becomes, same. So because you fail to, no, not fail now, which are not brought to the court. And that is why they had submitted certified through copies of these documents to them. It means that this same document is the same thing units which are blood, unidentifiable, or unascertainable. Since they are in that state and no original was brought in to counter them, let all the votes arising from those polling units be deemed as unascertainable votes or wasted votes or voidable votes or voided votes, because they cannot be linked to any party. So that is the argument. I don't know if you were able to understand this.
Yes.
Then to your second question.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. To your second question, please remind me again the second question.
So if Tinubu is chopped off between Obi and Atiku, who is
Yeah, I get it. So now the question is what are the basis for declaring a person a winner? Now, by virtue of the law, if the person who comes first in an election is deemed not to be qualified, or his nomination is deemed to be a voidable one and is indeed voided, the next thing to do is not even ask any other question, but to announce the second person as the winner of the election. That is what the law states. And that is the angle for which Atiku and the PDP are coming at their case. Because anything that happens to Tinubu on the basis of disqualification, they are the next in line to be announced, in that regard. Now, as for the Labour Party's case, what they are simply asking to be done is that when you discountenance these votes in these areas that we have mentioned, we brought reports regarding 3 states, Rivers State, Benue State, and one other state, which are the ones that were deemed to be unascertainable, all these votes, when you minus it, you cannot even declare any one of them the winner. When you minus all the wasted votes for which you have been canvassing for, I am the winner. Peter Obi is the winner. That is what he's saying. But if the court does not wish to see it in that angle, then they move to the argument for which, if it is going to be a runoff, then a runoff can only be possible on basis of the provisions of the Constitution, because Obi argues that he has the majority vote, which requires him to participate in a runoff. And if Atiku, if Tinubu is disqualified, Obi, I said Obi now, Atiku, if Tinubu is disqualified, please, let me come again. Looks like I'm being too fast. Peter Obi has the requirement of majority votes to participate in a runoff. If Tinubu is not disqualified, then there is a possibility of Tinubu participating in a runoff with Obi. If Tinubu is disqualified, the possibility of a runoff is between Atiku and Obi. That is it. But if it is not a runoff and they need to conduct a fresh election, then we now fall back to the other arguments of is Tinubu going to participate in the election? That means, will he be deemed not to be disqualified, or will he be deemed to be disqualified by virtue of the arguments that have been canvassed in court? So these are the possibilities in the case. Whatever it is, what I can tell you categorically is that the two parties want Tinubu to be disqualified. Whatever happens thereafter for them to dig it between themselves, who will know? But that is the crux of the entire matter, that the election was fraudulent. A fresh election should be conducted, or in the alternative, that they should be declared winner. Atiku wants to be declared winner, Obi wants to be declared winner. If you are not going to declare them winner, in the alternative, that you should conduct a fresh election without Tinubu participating in it. So these are the prayers before the court.
All right, thank you very much, Isi. Let me just add this to Ichie. So, like Isi Maxwell has said, after Tinubu is disqualified, the fight or the issue between Atiku and Peter Obi, like I said yesterday, in that battle, Peter Obi default already has a majority of the upper hand, let me put it like that, because of course Atiku has a upper hand in the sense that in INEC declaration he came second. But let me tell you where Peter Obi has upper hand. First of all, the first place is in the fact that Atiku could not get 25% in the FCT. And even if the vote is recalculated, Atiku's vote is still not up to 25% in the FCT. And Atiku himself, in his petition, already argued the same way Peter Obi is arguing for 25% in FCT. So it means when it gets to that point, even his argument against 25% on 25% in FCT will even be against him. That's one. Then, like Yusuf Maxwell said, Peter Obi currently has the highest number of votes, or rather, majority of votes. Between Atiku and Peter Obi has majority of votes in the highest number of states. I read it yesterday. You get Atiku had in 5 states, Peter Obi had in 7 states, and of course, the Federal Capital Territory, which makes it 8. And if you follow that part of the Constitution where it did not separate FCT, it just only says states. It's a funny thing. But the point is that if it gets to that point, there are so many things to consider, like Yusi said, and it will be kind of misplaced if we start analyzing in detail the different things that we consider when we don't even really know. Like I always say, the one that we know of is that Tinubu Otilo must be disqualified. That one is a given. All right, let me quickly go to that director. I know you were here earlier. Please go ahead. That director, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Good afternoon, everybody. Well done to you, Yusi Maxwell. But Yusi Maxwell, I must say, you are doing a great job, and as in awesome job. You all, well-meaning, and everybody in the 1 Million Man March crew. While I was waiting to ask my question, I think you have invariably answered it, because my question was going to compare, between the PDP argument and the LP argument of votes cast to see what will happen after, the Tinubu has been disqualified, because definitely he will be disqualified. So I was going to ask, what is the probability that we will have a straight declaration of Obi as the winner based on their both arguments? Because I had to clearly go and check when I read the PDP. The PDP also argued about vote suppression, but I don't think that they went deep at all into, proving that they had more votes than Tinubu. Meanwhile, in the LP's argument, they argued and brought out evidence to show that their votes were suppressed, and numbers, and in some states, which was some specific states, that they had more votes than was counted or was reviewed.